One of the biggest principles that we're going to talk about is DKE. Anytime you hear the word DKE, it means delayed knee extension. So the focus of that drill, that exercise, whatever we're doing, is focused on delayed knee extension. If you haven't watched the DKE video on the iPad section, be sure you go ahead and watch that video for a deeper explanation of DKE and what it means for us. DKE is about addressing and having us work on horizontal hip extension. So it's one of the prime reasons that we work on a lot of hip socket mobility and being able to turn through the hip sockets to create horizontal hip extension. So anytime you see the term DKE before a drill, know that that's the single most important aspect that we're trying to accomplish during that drill. We're trying to perform the task with horizontal hip extension. And so an understanding of that is there's two types of hip extension. We have vertical hip extension, and then we have horizontal hip extension. Those things happen differently based off of how we move through our hip sockets. So anytime you see DKE, understand that that's the focus, and that's what we're trying to accomplish in that drill. So one of the big key factors in DKE is maintaining our triangles and our shapes in the position we started. And so when I'm in this position right here, whether it's a stance, whether we're doing our corkscrew lunges, any of those things, I'm looking at the shapes that the angles create on the back side right here. Because if I have successful horizontal hip extension, these shapes are just going to fall over the top and the angles are going to remain the same. That is a forceful drive and motion. So if I'm doing the same thing on this side, you'll notice how this angle pretty much remains the similar angle that I get through here. When I go from red zone to red zone in that momentum, push, push, I'm boom, and it's pretty much the same angle throughout that movement. And you see the right leg fall over the top too. So this angle, all it does is it's the same angle because my hips are what drove me forward. And I get that through good hip socket rotation and ankle stiffness. And then also, like we've talked about, our joints, we have those three things that are very important for us. Ankle, knee, and hip. If the ankles fail and collapse, I'm going to get more knee extension based hip extension. If my knee and my hamstring, the muscles around my knee, can't hold my knee in place, I'm going to get knee extension more than likely as well, vertical hip extension. And then our hips are always the last thing in terms of what we're searching for to get to as far as our drive. Our hips start all these things. So if you haven't watched the iPad's early takeoff and acceleration video, go ahead and watch that to get an understanding of how the lumbopelvic hip complex creates and starts energy. But in terms of what we work on, DKE helps us start to get the pathway and pattern of getting our hips to extend horizontally. And we can change any knee dominant mover to a hip extension horizontal dominant mover, a hip dominant mover. We can do that for these athletes. And DKE is a progression in a series that allows us to do that. And so we want to understand anytime you see DKE, that's what delayed knee extension means for us.